So we continue with the beautiful Madhurya Leela of Krishna. Now, we saw the episode of Viprapatnis yesterday. So, we saw how a bunch of Vipras or Brahmanas who were so attached to the Karma Kanda and engaged in Vedic rituals which are rooted in Karma Kanda, they ignored the Supreme Being. So, this is a very symbolic episode of how, if you are caught in mechanical rituals, we lose the spirit of it, and thereby we lose the very purpose of engaging in religious activities. So, this is the same exact instruction, as many know, given in Upadesha Saram too, when a bunch of Vipras again engaged in mechanical rituals which are focused on Kamya karmas are given the instruction that karma is jada and Ishvara alone is real. So here also the same is beautifully instructed through a symbolic story as well. So we see that the Vipras, they ignored the request of Bhagavan. When Krishna and Balaram send the boys to ask for food, the whole purpose of any yajna is to offer sacrifice to Bhagavan. And here, very symbolically, Bhagavan himself comes and says, give me the sacrifice, and they refuse it because they are attached only in the bodily conception, and in that conception they are engaging in Vedic activities which are only taking them to heaven and such still temporary results. So that's why in the Gita too, there is a sequence of verses where Krishna says, don't get caught in flowery words of mechanical religious activities, but go to the spirit of it, which is to surrender to the Supreme Lord. So the Viprapatnis, they had the surrender. They didn't know the Vedas, they didn't know how to chant it, they were not trained in anything, but their heart was so pure, and that is the true spirit of Vedanta. So, Vedanta is to be free of mechanical, ritualistic observation, but going from the heart. So, it's not the mind that can ever know Vedanta, it is only the heart that can know. And because these Viprapatnis were connected in the heart, they did not know the word, but they knew the spirit of it. So, when they were called by Krishna and Balaram, or rather when they were asked for food, they immediately, without a thought of hesitation, they not only left, but they did not even mind anyone. It says here, Nishidyamanah patibir bhratubir bandubir sutaihi Bhagavati uttama shloke dirgha shruta dhritashayaha. So, patibir bhratubir bandubir sutaihi. So, their husbands, bhratu, their brothers, bandhu, their relatives, sutaihi, their sons, whoever it was that was stopping them, they didn't care for it. They were only fully devoted to Bhagavan, and they simply took the food and went to serve Bhagavan. So, which is very symbolic too of how one leaves all attachments and offers whatever one has to Bhagavan in full surrender. And when they go there, as we saw beautifully, it's described by Shuka Brahmam how Krishna is even standing there. He's standing with his legs as always bent and one arm resting on the shoulder of his friend, a lotus in his hand, a flute tucked on his hip, and he's looking so beautiful, wearing a garland of forest flowers, vanamala, having a beautiful peacock feather on his hair, and having yellow silk on his body, and with his cloud-like complexion, Krishna is looking so ravishing, and the Viprapatnis see him in this form, and just the very vision of Krishna in this form is a great blessing for them. They are completely transfixed, and then Krishna accepts them. He says to them, What you have done by coming to me is the right expression of devotion. He says, Ahaituki avyavahitam bhaktim atmapriyayatha. So you have come with Ahaituki bhakti. Ahaituki means bhakti without any cause. When there is any cause in devotion, that is still not pure bhakti. Ahetuki bhakti is that which is without any hetu or without any cause. Without any cause, you have come to me, and therefore your bhakti is the bhakti of pure self. He says, Bhaktim Atma Priyayata, because the only bhakti we have, Ahetuki, is our own true self. Because our true self is self effulgent and it is love for itself. And when we have love for Bhagavan, when we recognize that Bhagavan is our true self, only then we have no hetu. As long as we see Bhagavan as outside, we may have some motive, including even the motive of liberation or moksha. But all those motives go away when we recognize that as we take ourselves, do not exist at all. All that exists is Bhagavan alone. And that recognition that our very existence is Bhagavan is true love of Bhagavan. That's why he says, Ahetuki vyavahitam bhaktim atma priyayata. The love of the self is love of Bhagavan, which is what these Viprapatnis are blessed with. After giving them this wonderful blessing, Krishna tells them, now go back to your husbands or your relatives. And of course, as we saw, they protested, saying, first, that we don't want to leave you, and second, that they will not accept us anyway. And Krishna tells them on both counts, first, you will never leave me, because once you realize that your own self is me, then you can never be away from me. And second, your relatives will not have any problem. You go back and they will be fine. And so reluctantly, but listening to Krishna, they go back, and once they reach back to their relatives, just as Krishna had told, the relatives accept them. Not only do they accept them, they realize their folly. They say that looking at their wonderful, causeless love of Krishna, they feel ashamed. That's when they awaken, these Vipras. They say, Drishtva Strinam Bhagavati Krishne Bhaktim Alaukikim Atmanam Cha Tayahinam Anutapta Vyagarhayan. So, the Strinam Bhaktim Alaukikim. Alaukiki Bhakti means, again, it's unworldly love. The devotion, the so-called ritualistic devotion these Vipras had was Laukika Bhakti. They had worldly desire, including desire for heaven. Whereas the Vipra Patnis were Alaukikim Bhakti. They didn't have any worldly desire whatsoever, and they were fully surrendered. Seeing this, the Vipras were ashamed. It says, Dik Janma, Dik Vritam, Dik Bahugnatam. So they say, fee upon our vritas, fee upon our so-called observations. They say, Nunam Bhagavato Maya Yoginam api mohini yedvayam guravo nrinam swarte muhamahe dvijaha. They say the Lord's Maya is so powerful that it has infatuated at us, and that is why, even though we are so-called Vipras, we didn't know what is our true welfare. There is a difference between true self-love and selfish desire. Self-love is desire for our own being. It is not a desire at all. In fact, it is simply recognizing our essence as peace, our essence as true love, and our essence as Bhagavan. Selfish desire is rooted in taking ourselves to be the body or mind and having any goal, including the goal of liberation. So these Vipras recognized that our desire was selfish, whereas the ladies, their wives, were filled with self-love. And not only that, they say, look at them, they had nothing in terms of preparation. He says, Atapi hi uttama shloke Krishne yogeshwaresware bhaktir drida na cha asmakam sanskaradima imathamapi. Because they say these Viprapatnis, their wives, they didn't have any samskaras. He says, na tapo, na atma mimamsa, na shaucham, na kriya shubhaha. They didn't do any austerities like these Vipras did. They didn't study mimamsa, which is the knowledge of the Vedic rituals. They didn't do any shaucham, that is any purificatory rituals. They didn't do any kriyas. These Viprapatnis only had one thing, which is they had a pure heart full of love. Whereas these Vipras, they did everything. They had all the samskaras, they went through various purificatory rituals, they knew all the mantras, and despite all that, they didn't have devotion. So, again and again, we see how in Bhagavatam, very beautifully, it is pointed out that Bhagavan sees only the heart, not all these external so called qualifications. They are only an aid to purify the mind, but if that is lost, then they simply remain as purifying a corpse. So that's why they say, look at us, we have all of these samskaras, we didn't recognize the true purpose of life. These wives of ours, they were so pure, they didn't have any other samskaras, but they were directly connected to the Lord. And also they recognize that what does the Lord need? In the whole drama, he says, they use the word vidambanam. He says, he did a drama of asking for food, because if he wants to arrange for food, he can arrange with his yogic powers instantly. But he just displayed this pastime to demonstrate both our lack of true wisdom and the true love of our wives. And by executing this pastime, we have been taught this lesson. So these Brahmanas, not only do they accept their wives, they literally worship them. They say, most blessed are we in that we have such wives. Say beautifully, they say, Aho vayam dhanyatama esha nas tadrishi striyah bhaktya yasa matirjata asmakam nischala harau. So they say, we are dhanya, we are so blessed because of these strees, because of these wives of ours, because they have taught us what is true devotion, what is true love in Hari, and now we have awakened. And then they say a prayer, Namastubhyam Bhagavate Krishnaya Akuntamedase Yan Mayaya Mohita Dhiyo Brahmamaha Karma Vatsmasu. So by his own Maya we were caught in karma, but now we have awakened, we offer our obeisances to Krishna. So in this way, this beautiful episode of Viprapatnis and how they taught true devotion is given. And now we enter another most blessed Leela, which is very famous, called the Govardhana Leela. So we will just enter the beginning of this Leela. It's a beautiful Leela. So as we know, Govardhan is a mountain in Vrindavan, and in the days of Krishna and Balaram on earth, it was a very fertile and beautiful mountain full of all kinds of vegetation, and where the cows were there, where Krishna was spending time and so on. And it was giving sustenance to all the gopis, the entire village of Vrindavan. So once Nanda organized a major puja for Indra. Indra is the deity known to give rain, and therefore Nanda was organizing a great puja for Indra. And all these preparations were going on, and Krishna asks his father, "Oh father, I see all these various preparations being done. Everyone seems to be bustling. What is going on? Please tell me. I would like to know what is the reason for this, and I would like to understand why we are doing it." And Nanda explains to him. So first lesson here is, when a child comes in, so Krishna is still a son of Nanda, and Krishna is still a young boy. But Nanda takes the time to explain to him. So that's why whenever a child asks a question, it's very important to explain rather than dismiss them as many may do. So Nanda describes to Krishna why we are doing puja to Indra, because Indra gives us rain, and without rain we cannot have this fertile Govardhan. Without that we cannot have our cows have eat grass, and without that we cannot have agriculture. So all of this is because of Indra, therefore we have to offer puja to Indra. So Krishna again instructs very beautifully here, very humbly. He says, Father, don't we know that it is first of all due to the various activities put in by us in the form of karma that results are coming, and everyone is acting according to their swabhava, and Indra's swabhava is to also send rain. Everything is ordained by the one supreme, and therefore why are we offering worship to Indra? So he asks very beautifully again the simple pointer that we don't need to offer worship to any devata. If we recognize that everything comes forth only from one supreme being. So even today we see how many are caught in worshipping partial devatas for particular results. And Krishna here in Govardhan Leela, first thing he instructs is everything happens according to Swabhava. He says, Swabhava tantro hi janah swabhavam anuvartate swabhavastam idam sarvam sarva asura manusham. Whether it is asuras or manusha, that is whether it's demons or men, devas or asuras, everyone acts according to their swabhava. That applies even to Indra. And all the swabhava is according to what is ordained. And that ordainment is happening according to the one supreme ordainer, who is the all-pervading Ishvara. And therefore, why are we even offering anything to Indra? We should only praise the supreme ordainer who has given us Govardhan. So we can simply offer everything to Govardhan itself, which is an expression of the divine, rather than offer to Indra. So because Krishna makes a very persuasive argument, Nanda again showing how one should listen to their own son, because as we know, Nanda does not see Krishna as the supreme Lord, he sees him only as his son. And yet as the son, when he makes a persuasive argument, Krishna, when he says that, Nanda listens to it, and accordingly the whole village changes their plan. Instead of offering the whole puja to Indra, they decide to simply offer it to Govardhan. Govardhan is a very fertile mountain, as we said, and therefore they go to Govardhan, they take all the preparations, they go around the mountain, and then it is said that by Krishna's great yogic power, Govardhan himself appears in a form which is none other than Krishna himself, and accepts all the offering and blesses all of them. Everyone is very happy that Govardhan himself took a form and accepted all the offering. So the entire village who went in bullock carts singing various devotional songs did this wonderful offering to Govardhan. They come back. And that is how the Govardhan Puja is done. And that Govardhan Puja is still, that was started by Krishna, is still marked the day after Diwali. Every year Govardhan Puja is done to honor the cows and honor the mountain and honor the whole of nature that supports us. But when this is done, of course, Indra is very unhappy, and Indra wants to unleash his fury because his order or his supremacy is being questioned by Krishna. He doesn't realize who is Krishna. Just as Brahma was deluded, Indra is deluded as well. And due to his delusion, he is annoyed and angry that the puja that was supposed to come to him has been taken away. So Indra chooses to unleash his fury out of his ignorance, and how that results in the most celebrated Govardhan Leela we shall see tomorrow.